Alright, welcome to the next module in MGD 141. By this time you have gone pretty far on building your site using HTML and CSS. We've got content on our About page. We've added a style sheet now, and within our style sheet we've stylized a lot of elements on our HTML page. And likewise, we've included media queries so that and certain CSS styles and properties so that our site is responsible for mobile devices. What we're going to do in this module is learn about the Dreamweaver template. And we're going to do that so that we can create a single place to edit global content. If we continued the path we're doing now and we wanted to finish out our site, you would have to manually put your header, your nav, your main, aside, footer on every page. And maybe the first time it wouldn't be too bad because you could copy and paste a lot of that. But what gets difficult is once your site gets launched and you want to continue to make changes. Let's say there's something global that you need to change. Maybe it's a new navigation menu item, or maybe you change your logo. That gets to be troublesome if you have to go to many pages to make those edits. So that's going to introduce the chance of making human errors each time you make those edits. You might forget a page, and it just takes longer. So what we're going to do with the template is give us a single point of edit for the global. Now, as far as Dreamweaver goes, you don't see as many professional websites being built in Dreamweaver for a number of reasons. But it doesn't mean that it's not a legitimate tool. It works just fine. And this template feature is actually not too bad. It uses comment marks that doesn't really slow your website down at all. And other browsers generally ignore the comments for the Dreamweaver template. So while I'm introducing this and you don't see it quite often out there, it doesn't mean that this can't be a good website. But it also introduces you to the opportunity to have a template where you can create those single edits. If we were out in the real web world, you'd likely be using PHP or some other type of template where you have includes and everything gets pulled together there, and that's how you have single point of edit. And I'm not going to get into too much on how exactly that works. That's maybe for a little more advanced website design, but at least the concept of the template gives you an idea of how this works. Not only that, but if you really wanted to build a full website, maybe 8 to 12 pages, this Dreamweaver template route would be just fine, okay? And your site would work well, it would look well out there on the internet, and there would be no issues with it. So it is a legitimate, you just don't see it used quite that often as it used to. I'd say, let's see, 8 years ago, I used to build all Dreamweaver sites. Today I don't use it at all for that, and I've pretty much switched over to WordPress for everything I do for a local small client. But that doesn't mean that this couldn't be used. It's just that WordPress introduces a whole lot more features that would be very difficult and time consuming for me to do in Dreamweaver. Alright, so this module is going to be split up into several sections. There is some complexity to it, so take your time on this. We'll probably give this ample time for you to get everything moved over to a template setup so that we can keep going forward. So there will be a series of videos on this. I'm not going to do this all in one video. Alright, so the very first thing that we're going to need to do if we get started on that is we get our favorite Dreamweaver program up and going. And before I can even do anything with a template file, I need to do what's called site management. In your Dreamweaver interface, you've got a couple windows over here possibly already docked on the right side of your tools. The one in particular that I need you to have there is called Files, and maybe you've already started to work with this window already. It's a great place to manage your files. You can see the hierarchy, and you can rename and move files all within this window. But notice that up here I already have a folder called Philo MGD 141 local view. That's what you're going to want to get set up next. So the way we get that is we come up here to Site and we manage sites. If you want to go ahead and click New Site, that's fine. If we just hit Manage Sites, you can see that you have a lot of websites that you can manage all at once. If I needed to create a new site, there's a button for New Site. And all you have to do is name your site. And I'll just call mine Philo 141. You can name it whatever you want. And then you have to go find the local site folder. So you click on that folder. You click on the folder that has all your website files in it, and you hit Choose, Save. Now in this case I already had it, so I'm not going to do it again. So it would look more like this. Alright. And then once you have that set up, you just hit Save. And then you should see it as one of your files in your managed sites. And that's all there is to it. You hit Done. As soon as you hit Done, you should now see your site pulled up in the local view. And that's all there is to it. But this is a very important step. Every time you get into Dreamweaver and you're going to try to work with your template files, actually from here on out, every time you need to make sure this is set up before you get started on your anything on your website. If you're making changes, this has to be set up first. So this gets, certainly if you're working on the same computer and your files are staying in the same place all the time, then this should always come up automatically when you first start. You can switch between other sites if you have them just by clicking on this menu. But before you get started, that has to be set up. If you're exchanging files between computers, like maybe you're moving them on a thumb drive or Dropbox, you'll want to always make sure that this is set up again. So if it's not set up, you may have to go back to manage sites and set it up again. If you don't, you're going to have troubles with this template file. It just isn't going to work. So you'll have to do it to get it to work. So I want to remind you that every time you're working on these files, this site has to be set and ready to go. But that's all there is to it. You can see how easy it is. Just make sure you know where your web folder is with all the files inside it already. And then you can name it whatever you want, and then you find that folder, and then Dreamweaver's got it. So now Dreamweaver knows what all is part of your website. And that's going to be important for the template, because if it's going to apply the template to all your pages, it needs to know what and where they all are. Alright, so that's it for the site management. That's all I'm going to do for now, and then we'll go to the next video, which is kind of a hairy video on how to convert the About page into a template.